lunch.
Yeah, I think Jack usually takes the cake. He's usually up by one. He's usually up by 1 o'clock.
It's not good.
Yeah, no.
It's no good.
All right, let's go to today's daf.
Not good.
All right, so today is Tzadi Vav. Today, or yesterday was Tzadi Hey, and we left off the top of Tzadi Hey, and let's see how far we can get. Maybe we'll get through it. So we are 4 lines to the top. So yesterday we were discussing when there is a penalty and one has to go ahead and they took out too much. In our case, we were talking about, let's say there were too much, right? So let's say there was too much psilus, right? Too much psilus, let's say, included in a sale of grains and impurities. So what level do you take it back? Do you take it back to an acceptable level? Because let's say in that case we said, let's say maybe 10% or 1/24 is acceptable, or do you got to take it down till there's 0? So Tashma, come listen for lines from the top. Let's talk about Hona, right? Hona, right? Hona is ripping a person off by more than that's really a sixth. So what's the halachas over there in that case? Pafus mishtas. Let's say the guy rips the other guy up at less than a sixth. So nikna. Then it back off, right? Then the sale is valid. It's all good. Yaisimish does if it's more than a 6. In other words, the guy ripped him off by a quarter. Then bittul mekach. Then the sale is null and void. And shtus, but let's say it's a 6. Kana umachzer. Then he returns it. So the Gemara asks, am I the other? Right. So right. In other words, in the case of no. Right. So why is it to go ahead and return all of that? The other let him just return to an acceptable amount. Why take it down to 0? I thought acceptable amount, that's all I need. So Shmami, no, that's what from here called Heika the boy ladure kulim mahader. So that's not from here. Anytime you have to go ahead and return something, so you got to return it to 100%. You can't just return it to an acceptable level. So the very answer is no. Haki hashta. How can you go ahead and compare the two? In the case of an ahasa mikara shava shava, when I'm going ahead and making a purchase, I think I'm purchasing something that's worth $70 for $70. I do not anticipate it to be, worth $65 or $68, $69, and I'm paying $70. I think it's shava shava. So amar le mihu. So shava shava. So he says mihu. Nevertheless, pachas mishtas layadi b'mana. Right? If it's less than a 6, he won't recognize it in a model. And therefore people will be Michael. However, shtus, but once it's a 6, then yediyah, right? Then people will realize and then people they're not Michael, right? They're not Michael, and so they can recognize. And then therefore you have to go ahead and take it down to 0. Yes, in shtus, and if it's more than a 6, then Michael Tosu, about the Mekach, then it's about the Mekach. But in a case of, let's say, impurities included in grains, so then there's the guy doesn't anticipate that his sale, when he's buying a pound of seed, to be shava b'shava. He's not anticipating to have 100% seed. So therefore, maybe even in that case, let's say there's more dirt or stones included, right? Impurities included in the sand. Maybe the buyer will be okay as long as it is within the allowable amount versus being a case of shava b'shava. So therefore, a case of no is not a good example. So let's see another case. Tashma, come and listen. A person goes ahead and says, hey, hire me, I'm going to go ahead and plant 100 saplings for you. So Mark hires me to go ahead and work for him for 100 trees. So So Mark has seen my work before, and he knows that basically he's anticipating up to 10% of the saplings will not grow. And lo and behold, and let's say there's more than that. Let's say, so I planted only 88 trees come out of it. So I got to go back and not plant 2. I got to go back and plant 12 trees. So you see over there, right? You don't take it back to acceptable level. Acceptable level would have been just to go ahead and plant 2 trees, right? But I have to go ahead and plant 12. So right. So I said that. So Rav Huna b'rei Rav Yeshua kol yeser mikan kibalita michila dam. No. Once I'm going back to go ahead and plant, it's like I have a new job, right? It's a new job detail, and therefore that job is to plant 12 trees. So therefore, my new job is basically to plant 12 trees, and it could be Taka within me planting 12 trees that there's an allowable or an allowance to be, let's say, 1.2 trees, not to go ahead and bear fruit. but since it's like a new job, it's not fixing the old one, it's like a new job. So therefore, that's the reason why he has to go back and plant them all.
It's a different Rav Huna.
No,
It's a great Rav Yeshua.
oh, so I'm yeah. Who's the other one? The other one was yeah. Yeah, Yeah.
Blaming it away.
correct. Yeah. All right, now we're gonna get a little bit technical. So those who don't like technical, you can go ahead and take a nap. But a little bit, not so much. All right, so we'll make it so painful. Now we spoke last time in the Mishnah. So if I can just find the Mishnah, the Mishnah was about the Tzadi Gimel of days. It says over there, Martef Shal Yayin, a seller of wine. So the buyer is makabel of Eser Kaisos Lameh, right? Basically 10% of a wine from a seller. Okay, now. So 10% of the wine they anticipates to be no good, and therefore anything between 0 to 10% is an acceptable amount. Now, hey chidami, what is the case in our Mishnah? If it's just a seller of wine, stam, he just says that I'm selling you a seller of wine, right? So, Kash, let's go. We're gonna soon see a price, so there's gonna be a contradiction. I throw some this, okay? This seller of wine also kasha, kasha of the 90%. We're going to call this the 90% rule, okay? And Martif Zeh, the guy says this seller, without mentioning wine, kasha, it's going to be kasha. No, there's 3 ways. Seller of wine, this seller of wine, or this seller. Okay, so the middle case of the first brisa that we're going to see is going to be both this and wine. Now, why are these difficult with our Mishnah, the 90% rule? The time we learn in Brisa. The guy says, I'm selling you a seller of wine. It has to be all wine. And therefore, he has to give him all good wine, 100% wine. Okay, so that does not match our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah says 90%, correct? If he says this wine seller of wine, then you can go ahead. You don't have to sell good wine. You can sell an inferior wine. You can say this from a seller, but it has to be something that's at least wine, which is basically wine that's about to go bad. They can't leave it in their wine stores because those take some time for it to come off the shelf. You know where you can go ahead, go to the corner store, right? The corner store, instead of they have a slurping machine, they have a pop machine. And they also have a wine machine because they sell the wines that go bad quickly, and therefore that is included. So once again, over here, if you use that lashon, it's not the 90% rule of good wine. Rather, it's you go to your corner store and buy the inferior wine. Martiv Zani says this seller, whatever it is, even if it's all vinegar, right, which is even less than the wine sold at the corner stores, it's a good sale. So all these 3 cases do not match up to our Mishnah's halacha of 90% of good wine. So our answer is really it's a case if he says he's seller of wine, like the first case. The Tani Bereisha, but amend the Bryce and say like this: the Bryce of the Tani Bereisha Bryce. The Makabel law as replaces the Meya. All right, so now it all matches up, right? In other words, that the Mishnah says yes, you can sell him. It has to be good wine, but he can anticipate 10% off, and therefore that this first case of the Brisa matches exactly to our Mishnah. Fine, all is good. Gemara says it was stam Makabel. I understand stam. Normally, a person is Makabel, right? But if he just says, stam sell martif yain. But what about this? If one goes and sells a barrel of wine to his friend, nice and low yain should go yafa. He has to go ahead and give him 100% wine, not 90%, 100% wine. So I understand why is our Mishnah 90% and over here is 100%. So the Gemara says no. Shani Chavis, a barrel is different. The Kula Chad Chamru, one barrel, it's all the same wine. If part of it is already bad, all of it's bad. It's all connected, right? So therefore, right, as we'll soon see, there are stages of when wine goes bad, but if some of it's wine, it's all going bad. So therefore, none of it's good. So the Chavis, the barrel has to be 100%. It's different than a wine cellar. Now, getting technical, we didn't get technical yet. We're going to bring a second price of Rav Zvid. So remember, we have our Mishnah, which just says Martef Shel Yayin. And then we had to say, it was talking about Martef Shel Yayin and just amend the price. And there had the price of 3 cases. Now, what Tani Rav Zvid? Rav Zvid taught the Martef Shel Yayin. A guy says, I'm selling you a seller of wine. I'm selling to you. They say, lo, Yayin Shekula Yafen. 100%, right? Not 100% with the 10% discount, the 100% good wine. Martif zeh shel yayin. This martif of wine, right? So that, what did we say earlier, the previous price? So we said you can sell in corner store, liquor store wine, right? This one over here is nice in lo yayin shekol yafa makabel of eser kaises leman. Over here, it says you accept 90% good wine, right? Which actually matches the halacha of our Mishnah, but it's going on a different case, right? So martiv zeh shel yayin is not the 100% corner store quality. Rather, it's 90% good wine. The zehu, it says in his brisa, the zehu, right? And this is the case of our Mishnah, right? So this is the case of our Mishnah. In other words, it matches halacha and everything is good. Everything is good and fine and dandy, but how do we deal with that first brisa? Because the first brisa never gave a case like that. So therefore, let's amend our Mishnah. Our Mishnah should say, Martiv zeh shel yayin. Right? And that is the case, just like Rav Zvid's second case of 90% of good wine. So kasha zazah. I understand. So it was a kasha in the price. So he says Martin Zeshaya, you can go ahead and sell. The first price is said you can go ahead and sell, liquor store a wine. And then the second price says you have to sell in our Mishnah, you have to sell 90% good wine. So like kasha. Now it's like this. One is when he says for cooking. Now, actually, opposite of what I would have thought, and what maybe people think, cooking wine. Now, cooking wine has to be good wine. Why is that? Because it has to last. I go ahead and use something for cooking, so I need it for today. I need it for tomorrow. I need it for next week. It's something that can't go bad. So therefore, if someone says, right, that I'm selling you wine for cooking, that's basically a guarantee that I'm giving you good wine, right? So it's a level up. So therefore, when he says, the difference is one case is I'm selling you 90% good wine, and the other case is I'm selling you inferior wine. So no, the difference is when he says, when he says I'm selling it to you for cooking. Rav Zvid, in the case of Rav Zvid, who said that's 90%. Rav Zvid mikveh. In the case that he says, so therefore it has to be good wine, just something that goes bad, so therefore 90% has to be good enough. And Bryce, when the Bryce says he's not for cooking, he does not. Therefore, in such a case, he can go ahead and sell him corner store wine. Hilkach, therefore, Martiv shel yayin v'amalei l'mikveh. If the guy says, I'm selling you a cellar of wine, and he says it's for cooking, now he's saying lo yayin shekula yafeh. So he has to go ahead. He says, I'm giving you a cellar of wine for cooking. That he has to give all good wine. Martiv zeh shel yayin. If he says, I'm selling you this cellar of wine, and he says it's for cooking, so it has to be good wine. Therefore, it has to be the good quality wine. But since he said the word zeh, that means this specific cellar, and therefore some of it might be bad, and therefore it's the 90% rule. But if he just says Martiv zeh shel yayin, if he just says this cellar of wine, then he can go ahead and sell to him inferior wine that's sold at the local corner store. Fine. Iboilu, third last skinny line on Sadi Hey Amabes. Iboilu. Martif shel yain. So let's go back. He says, I'm selling you a cellar of wine. And he does not say to him, I'm selling it to you for cooking. So what is the halach in this case? Right? Do we say that let's see. So one who says since he says mikvah martif shel yain has to be wine, so it has to be good wine. So one says that he is makabel the 10%, right? Makabel means makabel that eser kaisos lemeya, right? He's makabel the 10%, only 90%, the 90% rule will apply. The other one says, you said you're selling me a cellar of wine, it all has to be good wine, it has to be 100% good. So which one is if he says martiv shel yain, and he doesn't mention for cooking? So makabel, the one who says he's makabel, he's accepting to the 10%, he's going to make a diuk from the price of Rav Zvid. The Tani says over there, martiv shel yain, and I'm selling you a martif of wine, I'm selling to you, nice and low yain shekula yafa. And over there, he has himself all good wine. And over there, we established where he says it's for cooking. So the reason is that it has to be 100% good. This is where he says it's for cooking. But he does not say to him for cooking. Makabel, then he's makabel 10%, not good, i.e. the 90% rule. So therefore, according to that opinion, the Brisa of Rav Zvid is mashma that 90% is for a case of where he doesn't mention cooking. Well, man it says he's not makabel. Daik Brisa learns from the Brisa. The Tanit says, "For there maitiv shayayin ani ma'ichelcha." I am selling you a cellar of wine. Nice in lo yain shekul yafa. Right, and over there he has to give him all 100% good wine. Do kina the mikveh. Right, and we established that case, as we said earlier, where he does not say to him for cooking. He says I. So okay, so each one has a good source. So if that's the case, that means there's conflicting brisas because each one has a different halacha. One says you get 100% of good wine, the other one says you get 90% good wine. The dying Rav Zvid. So the first one we had Rav Zvid, who says you're makabel. So kasha brisa. The brisa seems to be problematic because over there it seems to say that you get 100% wine. Right, even if you don't mention it's for cooking. So our answer is no. Chasur is missing a part. It's like this. Over there, it's only if he says for cooking, that's when you get 100%. But if he doesn't say for it's for cooking, so then he is makabel. Well, Martiv and Martiv Zeh Shayayin, and when he mentions this Martiv of wine, he says that's not for cooking. Then he goes ahead and he's allowed to go ahead and sell him wine that's sold in your, the local currency, whatever, the local corner store. And the one who makes the deal from the brisa that says you're makabel the 10%, kasha Rav Zvid. This is the kasha Rav Zvid. So our answer is Dukina Damerle, Dukina Damerle the mikveh, right? So yeah, please. Yeah.
I don't know.
So he says the mikveh, ha Damerle the mikveh makabel. So he says mashma over there, it's only the case when you get 100% is when he says for cooking. Mashma, the diuk is if you don't say it's for cooking, you get the 90%. So the Gemara says no. Who did the afagat lo the mikveh? Even if he doesn't say the mikveh, it's still whether he says for cooking or not for cooking. If he says a cellar of wine, that means you're telling me I'm getting 100% good wine. And the reason why he says in the case of we're talking about for cooking, it's because of the contradiction in cases. So therefore, we have to say that case was dealing with where he says for cooking, like we stated earlier to answer up the kasha before, but. Even without saying, if I just say, for the other cases, but even if in the case of a cellar of wine, then even if he doesn't say for cooking or not cooking, nevertheless, he would have to provide 100%. Fine, and therefore it comes out that our case of the Mishnah would be like we said, Martiv Zeh Shel Yayin. When he says for cooking, that was the case of Mishnah where it was 90%. Amar Rav Yehuda. Now. We get out of the technical stuff. Now let's get into some other fun stuff. So Amar Rav Yehuda says Rav Yehuda, Yain and Imka b'chanos. Speaking of this wine, this inferior wine that's sold, going to go bad in a couple of days. One does go ahead and make a brei piagafen. Rav Chizda Amar, Rav Chizda says, Gabi Chamra. I understand. Wine that's going sour, why on earth would you make a brei piagafen? You should make a shahakol, right? It's not wine, right? Souring, it's not wine. So I disagree with you. So Rav Yehuda says you make a brei piagafen and wine going bad, and Rav Chizda says not wine. So meitzve alapa on bread that's going moldy, valayayin shikim, or wine that sours, val tavshil shavra surasa, or a cooked dish that's already, basically lost its consistency, its flavor. One who goes ahead and says, you make a shahakol. So it's a kasha, and the opinion says make a brei piagafen. So it's still edible. It's not like vinegar yet. What is it?
We're talking about things
what?
Things that are starting to go bad, but you can still not eat them.
100, yes. That's what the right, and that's what they're selling this at the corner store, right? So it's still edible. As soon as you see there's going to be another darga of even less. Huh? Stale bread, yeah. They still sell it, right? Still 50 cents.
can still make toast out of it, but they're.
It's still 50 cents,
All
but
this warming here.
Yes.
you know.
yeah.
They toast on it.
Baruch atah Adonai. There you go, shotgun.
Man,
All right. Was it Shkach? Never had such a full cup in my life. Sorry about that. It's like 20 ounce. Was it 12? Is that
Try to make it 2 8s, 6.
That's fine. All right.
There we go.
I'm gonna have a seat. I had a rough night with all the side dishes of rocket slice. So I'm gonna have speed.
Yeah.
Maida Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says you make Rav Guffin on wine that's going bad. However, with wine that's made from the Portsmouth, the Mizdavin, the Karnasa. But let's say wine that's like, let's say, pressed from the what's it called? From the not the leaves, but the I guess from the extra stuff. It's like the I don't know, some of the juice boxes they're made for the grape juice boxes. Someone make a chocolate, so are the kernels, whatever it is. So those that you squish those and sell them for cheap. That Rav Yehuda agrees is shahado. And Amalei by Rav Yosef. So by Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef. Rav Yehuda, we have Rav Yehuda's opinion that says make it from Guffin. Rav Chizda, we got Rav Chizda. So come on, Smirle, who do you hold like? Samalei, Masnisan Yadia. I don't know, I'm not getting this. All I know that there is a brisa, a very fun brisa. Let's get to this fun brisa. Put on your thinking caps, the tiny little in a brisa. So Randy has a barrel. He's a farmer, right? He was a trader, and then he kept going back there to Israel. And he says, "You know what? I'm leaving Wall Street. I'm heading to the fire." So now Randy is separating his truma. So truma. So basically, so you can take from a barrel for other stuff that you have in your property, but you got to make sure that it's good quality. Mm-hmm. So Randy wants to make sure his barrel of wine for his vineyard is good, and then he's going to use basically that barrel to start, being mafresh truma from other areas from this barrel. So Randy goes ahead and he checks the barrel. He says, "Oh, looks good, smells good, tastes the top. There's mafresh aled truma." And that was January 1st. And then he comes back and he checks it January 31st, and it turns out it's vinegar. Now he's been separating truma and different areas of his vineyard from this barrel throughout January. So what do we say? We say Kol Gimel Yaim Vadai Mikan Velech Suffolk. For 3 days it's Vadai, and from here on out it is a Suffolk. So what does that mean? So let's see. So my Kamar, we're going to see 3 different versions. Rabbi Yechon gives you the first version. Haki Kamar. Kol Gimel Yamim Harishayim. The first 3 days, January 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, whatever you were separating for that's Vadai Yain. That was still wine. You tasted it, right? You tasted it right midnight January 1st. So you tasted it. So those 3 days, if you tasted nothing. We know for the next 3 days it was still considered to be wine. But after that, January 4th through the 31st, that was a suffix. And obviously everything after February 1st is vada no good. And then it's suffix. So my time, what's the reason? Wine goes bad from the top of the barrel. And Randy tasted it below akar, and it did not go bad. So Randy tasted it did not go bad, and therefore it was considered wine. Then an team to my boss at the team. Okay, you want to say even right after he tasted it began to go bad. At that point, it would have smelled like vinegar, but tasted like wine. It's still wine. Anything that tastes like wine, even though it might smell a little funky, it still tastes okay. It's wine. So therefore, according to this first opinion, Rabbi Yechanan, the first 3 days, vadai wine. Now, let's see a second opinion. Rabbi Shimon Levi. Rabbi Shimon Levi, no. You're opposite, Randy. You just checked in January 1st, it's vinegar. So the last 3 days, vadai vinegar. Anything you did. And before that is all suffix. Mekan on suffix. And earlier, from January 28th and earlier, that's all suffix. Up until the 1st, until the moment after Randy tasted. Why? My timer. Really, the wine goes bad from the bottom of the barrel. The Amar Akar, you can say the barrel started going bad, and Randy didn't realize it because it started going back on the bottom, but Randy only tasted it from the top, and therefore he didn't realize it. Even if I say it gets bad from the top, Tommy, and he tasted it, it was fine. Below Akar, tasted fine. So Dilma Bazar Tima Akar, he says, and therefore maybe it was after he tasted it went bad. Nevertheless, Havi Reichachala, that would be a situation basically where it smells like vinegar, vitame chala, it tastes like wine. The Reicha Chala, vitame chala, chala. And therefore, according to this opinion, something that's beginning to sour still tastes like wine, but it smells like vinegar. That's already considered like vinegar. Therefore, the first 3 days, we say it's already considered to be vinegar because it was already going foul.
That's
That was the second opinion. That was Rishon Levi. Now,
so.
yeah,
The Brycer said become the Elah, such thing. Rabbi Yochanan said become the Elah after the 3rd day,
right.
but he said Rabbi Shimon Levi said become the Lachalan something. It's not. It's
He means
he's changing the
you say the
lashon
lashon is not so good shma, right? So because it's going backwards, not
It's going
forward.
backwards,
Right,
not-
yeah. So it's not
It's forward.
right. So right, so, yeah, so 100%. But what he's saying is, going backwards is the vadai, right? But let's see what the people from the south say. They actually darsed in the name of Shubal Levi, right? No different version of Rishon and vadai yain. No, the first 3 days, January 1st through 3rd, it was vadai wine. And Achrayim, and the last 3 days, the 29th, 30th, and 31st of January, vadai chaymex. That was for sure vinegar. Then Tzayim Suffolk. And the middle days, right, the 4th through the 28th, anything that was separated from those days is a suffix. So I understand how good kasha. Married to Rishayim and Vadayayin. Understand? Like the way we just explained it before, if you say the first ones are Vaday wine, why is it Vaday wine? Maybe it started to smell bad. So it must be Alma, Rechel, Chalavatami, Chamra, Chamra. You must think that something that tastes like wine but smells like vinegar is still considered to be wine. But then you say the last 3 days are Vaday no good. Why is that? It's Alma. Maybe it just went bad the second before, but it smelled before, but it was, still tastes okay. So alma recha chalavatami chamra chala, right? If it smelled like vinegar, but it tastes like wine, it would be vinegar. So therefore, so which one do you hold? So this is going yishtacha chala svikasa. No, we're talking about a case that where basically he found that there was very, very strong vinegar taste, right? It wasn't something that just turned to vinegar. The fact that it didn't turn vinegar at least 3 days earlier, it would not have had such a strong vinegar taste. So come on, Pashale. So therefore, who does now? Rav Yosef, we introduced this Rav Yosef. Remember, they asked Rav Yosef, okay, do you make a shahakol on this wine going bad, or do you make a berei pri hagafen? So l'chayra, it comes down to this machlekes over here. Do we now basically something that is wine that is going bad is basically wine that tastes like wine but smells like vinegar. So such a case, so now it's a klang pasha. So playing about Rav Zvid. Chad Omer Rav Yochanan. One says he holds like Rav Yochanan, who holds that it is a berei pri hagafen, it's still considered to be wine. Chad Omer, the one would be like Rishon Levi. Would be Rabbi Shimon Levi that it's a shahakol because it's considered to be, if it smells like vinegar, then even though it tastes like wine, it's still considered to be vinegar, which would be a shahakol niyeh b'dvaro. Fine. 3 lines from the bottom.
Connection between this and ours, more than that's just totally different. So again, before was rough speed.
Right.
So that's just by chance.
So I see, yeah, I think so. Rav Mari, because that was right.
It's just you don't usually get a lot.
Right, he brought that Bryson, right? But Tanya was yeah, right, yeah, because it's not good with Rav Mari, huh?
The concept of the top mountain and cycle. Now, on their side, the spout is bottom.
Right,
And here it looked like they were standing up.
right. So he opened the barrel from the top and took out from the top. Right. So I guess it would be the same thing if it was just from the, you taste on the bottom, like the spigot or whatever's from the bottom. Then l'chora, maybe it tastes fine on the bottom, but if you hold that it goes bad from on top, so then it could already be, yeah. So it would get into it would be the same situation, just you do it sideways, or so then if your barrel's on the side, where are you taking it from? All right. 8 tomorrow, 3 lines in the bottom. So someone goes ahead, I sell of Avrami a barrel of wine to his friend, and it sours, it goes bad. The first 3 days, it's on me. However, after that, it's on the buy. Now, you got a 72-hour guarantee that wine is wine. Otherwise, you're on your own. Ushmuel Omar Chamra Akasba Damare Shavar. In other words, that barrel, it's like on the one whose shoulders are on. In other words, that Avrami, everything happens for a reason, and everything is min hashamayim. And if Avrami has bad mazel, right? It could be because it's mazel that it goes bad. It's nothing to do with me. I sold it on the top of the page on Tzadi Vav and Beis. It's nothing to do with the fact that I sold a bad wine. It has to do with the fact that had I been a better person, that maybe his wine would have lasted longer.
Probably.
So in Obed, Rav Yosef Uvda Kvasi Derav. So Rav B'Shichra, when it comes to beer, that basically there was a 3-day guarantee when it comes to beer. V'Kvasi the Shmuel B'Chamra. However, when it comes to wine, that is there is no all sales are fine. The halach is like Shmuel, all sales are fine. Tan Rabbanan. But that would assume, by the way, that the time of the sale, it was wine at the time. Because if we know there was wine at the time, then if it turns soon after that, that's too bad.
Is that the classic Shmuel, that only wine? But that's everything.
I think it could be in both. Let's see. There's no Rashbam in there. You get to look into the Rambam and all that and all the.
Okay.
Fine, the Rif. So talking about an echad shaker tomorrow echad sa'arim echad shmarayayin mevarkelim shakol mi'advarim. Right. So whether it is the beer from dates, from barley, from wine sediments, right? You make a shahakol mi'advarim. If it's the sediments, right, these that have flavor of wine, then and Rabbi Yosef, they say, "Ein halacha is not like the acherim, where you make a berei pirgafen, rather you make a shakal." And Amar Rava Dekuli Alma Rama Tlasa Vyasa Arba. You go ahead, you have these the leaves or the tea leaves or the grape leaves, right? And you pour it on it. So you pour water over it, right? These, all right, and so now it goes through, and now so you pour Ramat Tlasa, you pour 3, and it comes out 4. All right, so I poured 3 cups of water, and now it created 4 cups of wine after going through the grapes, right? So obviously there's 1 cup from the grapes, right? Not from the wine. So everyone agrees that's common. Everyone agrees that that's wine, and therefore the bracha on that would be Brei Pirgafen. And Rava Latami, Rava says she does so, right? Because this is Rava saying, "The Rava he says Kocham Delay Dari Al Chad Plus Maya Lav Chamru." Any wine that's not strong enough, basically to stand to 3 cups, is not considered to be wine. It's too diluted or whatever it is. But this is wine. It's 3 to 1. And 3 to 1 is perfect. This is perfect wine. You make a Brei Pirgafen. However, Rama Tlasa Vesa Tlasa, let's say I go ahead and pour 3 cups of water. And the result, it goes through the strainer and it results in 3 cups of this colored water, which some might call wine and some might. Like Pluma, that's nothing. Why? Because over there, once again, what came through, it was basically the water. You poured in 3 cups of water and you got 3 cups of water. So therefore, yes, maybe some of the flavor might have changed it, but it's just flavored water. It's not considered to be wine. Keep ligi. What's the math like? Is the Rama Tlasa Vyasa Tlasa Palka? You pour in 3 and you get 3.5. Rabban and Savri, oh boy, plus ayil and plus nothing. You poured in 3 cups of water, and 3 cups of water came out. And Pashu Palka, right? And then all you have is 1 cup or half a cup from the grapes, right? And therefore it's a half, right? 2, 3 holes, right? Upalga b'shisa. And therefore you have a half cup versus 6 half cups, right? 3 to a half is the same as 6 to 1, and therefore that's not considered to be a good consistency of water to the grapes, to the wine leaves. And the others hold Talasa, so 3 cups went in, and only 2.5 cups of water came through, and therefore kuza, and therefore there's a full cup of basically wine. The kuza betrayal palga, and therefore you have 1 cup versus 2.5 cups of water. That's good strong wine, and therefore that would be a brei pirgafen. So one says that no, it's a half to what's it called? Okay, we even finished earlier, 7:00, right? So a half to 6. Right, actually 1 to 6. That is 1 to 2.5. So therefore, 1 to 6 is shakol nebidvoro, and 1 to 2.5 would be a bracha of berei pirgafen. So Gemara says, right? And if it's more than, I understand, is it anything even over? So you pour in 3 and you get 3.5, or anything amount, there's a machlekes. But Tanan, we learn in the Mishnah. One who goes ahead and he pours in water, and then he finds the exact amount that he poured in, right? Putter. Such a person is putter from Maisus. It's only considered to be that which he poured in. Rabbi Yehuda says he's chayiv in that case in Meiser, right? This is by right. In other words, that we're talking about a case of where he has to go ahead and take Meiser from it. And therefore, if it's wine, it's chayiv Meiser. If it's flavored water, it's not considered, right? So if he goes that he tries to strain it and he puts in water and he gets the same amount of water, he's potter. Rabbi Yehuda says chayiv. The only machlokes over here is the same amount. But it sounds like if you poured in 3 and you got 3.5, right? You would be chayiv meiser. I won't agree. So right. So we see, understand. So the man says no. Even more than that. So why'd you do a case that you pour in 3, you get back 3? To go ahead and basically tell you the strengths of the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. The Rabbi Yehuda holds that even if you pour in 3 and you get 3 back out, it's still considered to be wine, and it's still chayiv meiser in such a case. I will stop here.
What are you doing in Rosh
That's a good question.
Hashanah? I mean,
No, it's not been discussed. Sort of pushed off to another.